Yes, so you want to put lug studs in your car. Maybe you broke them off, or maybe you want to put some longer ones on because you're going to put some spacers on. Either way, the idea is still the same behind it. This is a stock one, and we'll be removing those in favor of some ARPs. So stay tuned. This will work on basically any Toyota or any other splined lug stud type of vehicle. So the idea is still the same behind it. So anyways, let's get to it. Alright, once you get the wheel off, make sure you take the brakes off. Yeah, you can't easily install them with the rotor in the way. So go ahead and just remove that all. It'll make everything a lot easier in the long run. So now we're faced with two different tasks at hand. One, we got to knock out the studs, and two, we got to actually pull the studs through. So let's start with the first step. There's two whip methods that I've always used. One is using a 2-pound mallet. A few good solid hits on the stud will actually push them through. If they're really rusted in, you could probably heat up the hub area around where the splines are. Try to open that up a little bit, soak in PB Blaster, but a few good solid hits usually knocks them loose. The other method, which I think is a little bit better, is using an air hammer with a pointed tip, and you can thread the lug nut on it as a guide so this doesn't bounce around. And I think that's a little bit better. It's probably a little bit less impacting damage on the wheel bearing. And if you're only doing it a couple times, it's not really a big deal. I'm sure the bearing sees quite abuse on normal driving. But just keep that in mind. If you're going to be wailing on it, it's not the best for the wheel bearings. So anyways, let's get started. I'll show you both methods, and you can choose which one you want to do. Alright, let's go ahead and use the mallet and just show you how easy it really is. So you're going to want to line the studs up with an exit point. So you can see that the stud can actually exit through here. I don't have a dust shield on, but there's usually a space that you can push them through. If you were to push them through somewhere else over here, you can never get the stud out, so you would have to rotate it afterwards. So anyways, this is where I want to do it. Like I said, it should just be a few good whacks. Just like that, they're free. Whacks. Just like so. That wasn't too bad, and you can do that 5 times total and remove all the studs if you ever need to replace them all. I'll go ahead and show you another method. Alright, for this method you're going to want to find maybe an old open end lug nut. You can use your own. There's a chance of you screwing up the threads, so I always like to keep a few of these on hand. Plus later on when you draw the studs through, we're going to be using the lug nuts again anyways, so make sure you just have a few spares. And these are actually the OEM ones. The cap has been removed on it. If not, you can go down to the auto parts store and pick up any one for a couple bucks. So go ahead and thread it on. All right, and you want to be able to see it on the inside. So what you're going to want to do is put the air hammer inside, lean into it, and just let it go. Put the air hammer inside, lean into it, and just let it go. Alright, so that method's a little bit nicer because it's not as much impacting on the bearing. Might take a little bit longer to do because you have to screw the lug nut on and off, but both methods are easy. Just use the tools that you got. So let's go ahead and take the rest of them out. Alright, so knocking them out is pretty easy. Putting back in takes a little bit more effort. So what I like to use is a bunch of washers and nuts, lubricated, and then using an old lug nut, and I like to draw them in by tightening down the lug nut with an impact. And you got to be careful when you're using an impact, because you generally have the tendency to over tighten it. And I like to watch on the back where it's drawing up to the hub, and once I see the gap disappear, I stop. And I've actually done it before where I just kept going, trying to make it as tight as possible, and I actually wound up stretching the threads on a few of them, and I had to redo, I think, 3 or 4 different lug studs. Live and learn, but you tighten them up to where it stops at the hub, and you don't do any more. And make sure you test afterwards before you try to put the wheel on and everything, that they still fit. So anyways, let's go ahead and bring these in. Oh, another clever trick you want to do is grab some vice grips, and that keeps the lug stud from actually turning. Alright, go ahead and grab the back of the lug stud by some vice grips and just feed it through. And put a stack of washers or nuts or whatever you got. A little lubricant. Put the lug nut on. Go ahead and draw it so it gets started in the splines. And then remove the vice grips. Keep track of the distance to the back of the stud to the back of the hub, and once that closes up, stop using the impact. And just like that, we're closed up and good to move on to the next one. Yeah, one other thing I forgot to mention, when you're pulling these lug studs in through the splines, you're going to want to make sure that you have, 17, 19, 21 millimeter, whatever have you, type of lug. And the reason why is that this style, this is, the Gorilla spline. You can get knockoffs everywhere. Maybe Gorilla's even a knockoff. You can get these anywhere, but the problem is these keys like to crack, and just from years of using these, they generally will break when you use an impact. Try to make them too tight. I've already had one break, and ever since then I actually tighten up everything with my small 3/8 impact, but I always will actually fully tighten everything with a either a torque wrench or a long breaker bar, and I won't do any impacting force on it. So if you're going to use this to pull up your studs using the impact, hopefully you got another key, because these things, like I said, like to crack. So I know some people are going to ask, no, these are not the IS300 lug studs. The IS300 lug studs don't have the speed nose on it. These are actually for a Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 8. Part number is 100-7717. They work just fine. They're about 3 inches long, a little bit longer than the IS300s, and that's actually what I needed. Even for my 15mm spacer, I needed that much extra lug stud. And it's just because the work equips have such a large backing pad where the lug nuts mount to. So I actually had to do extended studs to even get them on. So no, I'm not going for a hella flush fitment. It's just what I needed. So anyways, any questions, post them below. And if you like what you see, subscribe, and I'll try to get some more videos out there. So anyways, stay tuned.